everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is my January TBR. So this list is ambitious to say the least, mostly because I have been in a fantasy reading slump for the past probably year, 2 years, where I've been really struggling to read fantasy books like I used to. It was definitely my most read genre for quite a while there, but now I'm reading more thrillers and contemporary books and not so much fantasy and sci-fi. By the way, if my voice sounds weird, it's because I'm getting over an awful cold. I talk about this more in another video if you're all that interested, but basically I had a really bad cold flu situation, not COVID, and my partner also had it and was hospitalized, and it was a bad time all around, so I might have to keep stopping and starting this video to get through it. But anyway, so like I was saying, I have been in a very terrible fantasy reading slump as well as being sick, and most of this TBR is fantasy, mostly by accident. It's not really my fault. I do have some thrillers thrown in there in case I need a break, so let's get on with the books. I'm going to show you things I'm reading for book clubs, things I'm reading for challenges, things I'm reading to recap, all the things, all the things. The first book that I need to read in January is I Am Widow. I received this from my lovely friend Kayla as a Secret Santa present. She also got me some really cute socks. This one has been going around BookTube and Twitter and book blogs, I imagine, and everyone is loving it. I believe this is like a dystopia sci-fi situation. It's YA, but apparently it's kind of bordering on adult as well, so like new adult should maybe be a thing that people start using. Apparently it's very dark. The main character is becoming a pilot in order to assassinate another pilot who killed her sister, I think, and hopefully maybe she succeeds. I don't know. It's quite a short book. I think it's about like 350 pages, 360, so I can deal with that. And we are reading this as part of the Space Sirens Book Club pick. It's our pick for January and we'll be discussing it on the last weekend of January. I'm very excited. I'm expecting to love it because everyone else has. I don't know anyone who hasn't liked this book, so that's promising, very promising. Next on the pile are some books I'm going to be reading for a reading challenge. So you may know that I'm trying to get my TBR down for one thing, so this is part of that, but I'm also going to be doing a challenge where I read 3 old school YA books or just any popular books from BookTube from years and years ago to see how they hold up now, because I've had these on my TBR for absolute years, probably 9 to 10 years at this point, and I should probably get around to reading them. So for the first challenge video, I'm going to be reading these books and I'll be doing that in January. So first of all, we have Wicked Lovely, which has a very different US cover, which I much prefer. This one isn't great. This is a fae story, I believe. There are 3 rules on the back. So first is never stare at invisible fairies. Rule 2, never speak to invisible fairies. And rule 1, don't ever attract their attention. I'm not a massive fan of fae stories, which I think is why I've been putting this book off for a decade now. This one came out in 2007. I would have bought it probably 2010, 2011 because everyone was talking about the series. I think it was ending around that time and I just never got to it. So I'm going to be reading this, looking into what the author is doing now, talking a bit about the history behind the book on BookTube because I remember everyone was loving this. Yeah, it should be a good time, even just for like the historical BookTube aspect of it. I also have Stolen by Lucy Christopher. You may remember this one because it was very controversial. So this is written in letters. It's about a teenage girl, perhaps a child, I'm not sure, who was abducted, and she starts to fall for her abductor, but obviously like not in a good way. There's a whole like psychological thing going on there. So this was written in 2009. I believe it's set in Australia, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to pick it up at the time, because I was actually planning a trip to Australia that I've never actually been on because of money and timing and now COVID. But yeah, this one is very beloved. Everyone loved it and I'm looking forward to seeing what that's all about. The next one is not such a popular one. I remember it doing the rounds, but I don't think people were obsessed like they were with those other 2 books. So that is Generation Dead. This one is a zombie book. I think it's the first in a series and it's kind of like gothic-y, high school, teenage sort of horror. This one came out in 2008, so I probably would have picked it up because I saw the final book in a bunch of book hauls and that influenced me to buy this first one. It's just how it goes sometimes. So yeah, I'm going to be reading those and talking about those in depth and where the authors are now, so that's very exciting. I'm really excited to do that challenge because it's also going to help me get my TBR down. Next, I'm going to, hopefully, this is a maybe because I'm not entirely sure I'll be in the mood for it, but perhaps. I just wanted a shorter book, to be honest, because some of these next ones are quite long. We have Trail of Lightning, which is urban fantasy by Rebecca Rowan-Horse. The main character is a monster hunter, and I know there's some controversy surrounding this author that I don't really know much about, so I'm not going to talk about it in too much detail, but there are some disputes as to whether she or they, I'm sorry, I don't know what their pronouns are, whether they took mythology that wasn't from their own background, and I think they may have used mythology from their husband's culture that may not have been entirely accurate. I'm not sure. This is just stuff that I've heard, but I thought it might be important to mention, so I'm mentioning it. You can go and do your own research. But yeah, it's a very short book. I'm looking forward to giving it a go if I do decide to get to it, because this next one is a brick. I decided to pick up House of Earth and Blood in January because I want to recap it before the second book comes out, and I hate ACOTAR with a burning passion, but I really enjoy Throne of Glass, so I'm looking forward to reading this one where hopefully the author has calmed down from all of the Fae stuff and the characters won't anger me as much as they did in ACOTAR, which again I hated. But this one is like 900 pages, and I don't understand why. It's not 900 pages, it's 800, but still. I don't understand why Sarah J Maas has decided to do that to us. I haven't read one of her books in absolute years, actually, because I haven't finished Throne of Glass, the series, but I will do that in 2022. That's a whole different thing. This one, I think, is urban fantasy. There's angels, shifters, humans, fae, demons. So I actually really enjoy urban fantasy, and I feel like it's been something that Sarah J Maas has wanted to write for a while, and is kind of veering away from more traditional fantasy. But like I said, this one is huge, so I might actually start this one in late December in order to get through it in time. I'm expecting it to be a really fast read, because her books always are. I never struggle to get through them, but I'm very nervous about reading this as well as all of these other books on this TBR. I think this is the one that's getting to me the most, but I do need to read it because I have received so many requests to recap it for recaptains, probably because people don't want to reread this book before the second one comes out, because that would just be too much work. I dread to think how long the second book is going to be, but we will see. This is kind of a definite, and I'm really hoping it doesn't like knock out the rest of my TBR because it's going to take so long to read, but fingers crossed, it'll be fine. This next one that I want to read is one that, well, these next, I think, 5 books are ones that I asked my friends to choose by listing numbers for me, and I coordinated those numbers with the books on my bookshelves. This is also controversial, and my reasons for picking it up are: one, I owned it from years ago. I picked it up for £1 in a charity shop about 10 years ago, still haven't read it. And 2, I want to read it myself and then look more into the controversy surrounding it. So I should probably tell you what it is first, and that is Memoirs of a Geisha. I've heard all sorts said about this one. Apparently it's, well, for one thing, it's a white guy writing, I think he's white anyway, I assume, writing a memoir of a geisha, a Japanese geisha, like why? But also I've heard that there was some sort of lawsuit involved with him and a woman he interviewed, a Japanese woman who was working as a geisha, and he promised to grant her anonymity. I struggled to say that word, and not name her, but apparently he put her in the acknowledgements, and she was like, look, you've just ruined my life. Now everyone knows that I've said all these things. So I don't know. But my main thing is basically this woman who was involved in the lawsuit with him, I think she was paid off in the end to like stop talking, and they came to some sort of settlement, and then she released a autobiography memoir sort of thing, like of her own. So I'm looking forward to reading this and then reading her story and seeing like how they compare and what exactly he's done here that could be very different to what she actually experienced, because I've heard the 2 stories do differ quite a lot, but also at the same time, like, this is supposed to be fiction, so it's not meant to be an identical copy. I don't know, but yeah, basically I want to read this. I want to look more into the history of the lawsuit and of the woman it's actually based on. I don't know why I do these things to myself. I already had the book, okay, so let me read it. Then we have one that probably has a very high chance of being DNF'd, but again, I already owned it, and the whole purpose of asking my friends to choose numbers was to get me to pick up books that I have owned for absolute years. So I would have picked this one up from a charity shop probably about 9 to 10 years ago, and that is Picture Perfect by Jodie Picoult. I would have picked this one up around the time that I was collecting some of her books, because I watched the film of My Sister's Keeper. I don't think I read the book, and then some of her subject matters really appealed to me, but I don't think I actually read any of the books. I just liked the idea of them. So this one, no, I must have read one of them, because I remember one about like a witchy sort of cult. It says here, a woman wakes up lying in a graveyard, hurt and bleeding. Her memory is wiped clean. She's rescued by a police officer. She is identified as Alex Rivers, Hollywood's biggest movie star. Okay, so I really really like books about famous people, so maybe I will really enjoy this, but I don't really have high hopes. I just want to read it and get it off my TBR. Next we have The Storm Crow, which is the start of a YA fantasy series. I don't know what it's about at all. I think I got this art copy from my friend Justine, maybe. I haven't heard much about this one since it released, but I know that everyone was very excited for it at the time. This one came out in 2019. It says here that it's Eragon meets And I Darken. It's about a fallen princess as she ignites a rebellion to bring back the magical elemental crows that were taken from her people. So maybe they ride crows or something, I don't know. But I am looking forward to trying it. It's very short for a fantasy book, so it shouldn't be a problem for me to read. Next, I have The Historian, which is a chunky book. I didn't realise quite how kind of dense it was. And again, this is one that I would have picked up from a charity shop years ago, so it's good that my friends chose this for me, because I probably wouldn't have picked it up anytime soon if they hadn't. So this came out in 2005. I don't know why I'm feeling the need to tell you when all of these books came out, because it's not really relevant, but I just thought I'd tell you the history of why I've got them. I don't know what this one's about. Is it about vampires? I think it might be. It says here that it's a spirited update of Bram Stoker's classic. Dracula has developed a mysterious penchant for librarians. Okay. Late one night, exploring her father's library, a young woman finds an ancient book and a cache of yellowing letters addressed ominously to my dear and unfortunate successor. Her discovery plunges her into a world she never dreamed of. Something, her father's past, her mother's mysterious fate, and evil hidden in the depths of history. Also talks about the Ottoman Empire and the Romanian countryside. So I've not really got like a feel for what this book is about. Again, I picked it up because it was popular at the time and I found it in the charity shop for very cheap. Next, the final fantasy book that I have on my TBR is The Girl King. This is an art copy. I think I got this from my friend Justine as well. This one didn't receive very good reviews, but it was very hyped up before it came out. This one is about two sisters. One of them gets the throne or something, and one of them thought they were going to, so they end up fighting. I'm not sure whether or not this series gets better because I haven't really seen anyone read the sequel or sequels, but I'm gonna give it a go and see if I like it, and then get rid of it if I, oh, that's my cat, get rid of it if I am not really in the mood for it. So those are all the physical ones I'm trying to read. I realise a lot of these are backlists and not really new releases, and a lot of them are fantasy, and that was kind of intentional because I do want to get my physical TBR down next year, and it's going to be a huge focus of mine. I don't think in future months I'll be focusing so much on my backlist TBR. I'll be doing my challenges definitely, but I want to read a few more newer things I got for like my birthday and things. This is just how this January TBR has played out. But I do have some thriller books on NetGalley that I want to read if I get kind of bored of all of this fantasy sci-fi stuff that's going on. So first of all, we have Her Perfect Twin. I don't really know much about this one. It's a thriller. I have These Deadly Games. Again, it's a thriller by Diana Urban, who wrote All Our Twisted Secrets, I think it was called. I really enjoyed that debut. It was very, very good. So I got this one from NetGalley. There's also A Flicker in the Dark, which I mentioned in my books that I might read over the Christmas holidays, and if I have read that by now, because I'm recording this in advance, then obviously I won't read it in January. And then there's also The Long Weekend by Gilly Macmillan, who is an author I've read from before and I don't feel very strongly about, but I wanted some more thriller books to read and to promote, so I have those ones. That's my entire January TBR. It may change depending on my mood reading, but I'm still going to try to stick to getting my physical TBR down. I'm going to be releasing a 2022 goals video where I talk about all of this in more detail. I wouldn't have done that yet though because of the Christmas holidays and because of this flu thing that I am still recovering from, but that is coming, so stay tuned for that. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you remember any of the old school ones from years ago and what you thought of them. Wish me luck because this TBR is probably my most ambitious yet, but I have a feeling the UK might go into lockdown soon, so I should have a bit more time to read. Who knows? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye!